Halo Wars was played and recorded on the Xbox One X. I will start this review off with this story. The plotline of the game is that the Covenant is trying to uncover secrets on a planet, but I forget what the name of that planet is. That's what I got from the story, but please tell me if there is something different that I missed. But let's just say that the story made no sense to me at all. I think it's because I spent too much time in-game instead of watching the cutscenes. The missions were way too long in my opinion, and to me this took away from the story. I actually had to re-watch all the cutscenes just to understand what this game was about. The story is not easy to follow at all, just because again, the gameplay is so long. The story is so forgettable that I even forget what the main characters' names are. Now onto the soundtrack. For me, Halo is the king of soundtracks in video games, and Halo Wars just did not do it for me. The music sounded just like any other generic strategy game. It's funny to think about, but the music in the main menu was better than in the game itself. Like, just have a listen to this. During the gameplay, the game music just fades into the background, and you don't even notice it. On the other hand though, the sound effects are very well done. The explosions sound just like explosions, and the gunfire is very well done, and sometimes if you're using a Spartan in your units, you'll hear their shields regenerating, and it's just like that added detail and sound. While wearing headphones, all of the sound effects, and the voices, and the music are all very well balanced. But when you're listening through a speaker or soundbar, the cutscenes can be very quiet. The graphics are pretty good for a strategy game, I will admit that. The cutscenes were very well done, besides the sound not being loud enough. The graphics were really well done, and it was just cool to see the difference in size between the Spartans and the Elites compared to the normal Marines. They did have one of the Prophets in the game, and they showed him in a few cutscenes, but I prefer his design in Halo 2 Remastered than in this game. The controls got very complicated at certain times, and I had to go back to the pause menu a few times just to review the controls, but after about an hour or so, I just got used to the controls. You cannot change the controls in this game, which is understandable because one, why would you need to change the controls once you get used to it? And the controls, it's kinda hard to forget. There was more content in this game than I did expect. You can play skirmish, which means that you can set your own parameters and stuff, and create your own base, and then you just attack the other base, and you can add certain skulls and difficulties, and you can even play as the Covenant, which is a good thing. There's also a tutorial which is very good for them to include in this game. You can go over this tutorial as many times as you would want, and it tells you specifically how to do certain things, which I like a lot. There's also this other section in the game called Halo Timeline, and in this part of the game it's actually really informative and interesting. It's kind of like lore within the game, and it tells you what happened on which date. So this is the part of the review where I tell you what I did and did not like about a game. I'll first start off with the negatives. So as I mentioned before, the story is very short and the missions are very long. The cutscenes are usually only about a minute and a half long, and the gameplay is an hour long. That ratio doesn't seem to work for me, and I know in other games that it's basically the same thing, but for some reason it was harder to follow the game in this case. I wish that they made the missions shorter and the cutscenes longer, then I probably would have understood the story much better. The soundtrack could have been much better as well. I expect a great soundtrack from a Halo game, and with Halo Wars I didn't get the same feeling from this game's soundtrack. I will now start with a positive. One positive that I had was the cutscenes and how well they were executed. Yes, during the cutscenes the frame rates was off. You could obviously tell in this clip I'm showing you now. But anyways, the cutscenes are very well done and the graphics are very good. I really enjoyed the cutscenes. I guess the only other real positive of this game was the fact that there was a skirmish mode. Now I wish in the skirmish mode that they added certain things like unlimited resources or something, just so then you can see the entertainment of you building up an entire army and absolutely obliterating the enemy. That's what I like about strategy games, is that you can do that sometimes, but here there's a limit to how much you can have. I wish that they added more to this game, but I don't know what they could have added. It just felt like there was something missing from this game. game. And to be honest, I would not play this game again. I wouldn't play this game again because the campaign was very short and I can just look up the cutscenes online just to understand the story better. Yes, I can play Skirmish, but there's only so much you can do in Skirmish, and it can get boring after a while. At first, I really did like this game, but then after a while, it just started getting tedious. And as I mentioned before, I did get bored quite easily within the game. Might have been because I was playing on easy, but I didn't want to play on a harder level because I'm really not good at strategy games. There was multiplayer in this game, but it's nothing to really talk about. The reason why I say this is because it's the same thing as the campaign or Skirmish. You just build up your own base and then attack the enemy base and just see who wins. So this is part of the review where I tell you my overall score for this game. I felt like I was a little bit harsh on this game. I don't know what I'm missing, but I just wasn't into the game. Sorry to the people who might get offended by this review, but take it with a grain of salt. It's just my opinion. You make your own. So for Halo Wars, I give this game a 5 out of 10. So the reason for this score is that at first it was a fun game, but then it got tedious after a while. The story could have been better, and I will admit the cutscenes were very well done, but they just needed to be longer. I really hope that Halo Wars 2 is a lot better than this one, but I won't be playing that for a while. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video, and see you next time.